It's time for the RPM Podcast, starring Eric Brennan.
I like lemon parties.
Sam Ballard Jr.
All right, that's it, young man. No Bible stories for you tonight.
Nick Rendo.
Yeah, I would rather have a bigger one.
Scott Riggleman.
That guy's trash, and I want him off our screen.
And Josh Matthews.
He doesn't need those doctors.
And welcome back, everybody. Here we are again. Episode 124 of the RPM Podcast. And we're recording this at 9:14 p.m. on Wednesday night, January 9th, 2019. It's the first show of the 2019 season. And we're going to kick it right off with first winner of the year on our show. First guest of the year, first winner of the year, Mr. Ryan Flores. How you doing, Ryan?
Doing good, man. Happy to be talking to you guys tonight.
Yeah, you're becoming like a regular on this show. You're like our go-to guy for all the down south gossip down there. And you come up here during indoor season, and you win some races, and you come back and to tell us your story. Tell us a little bit about your weekend. I know they raced Friday and Saturday over there. How did you make out on Friday?
Friday, so we unloaded, and we overcompensated. There's a new tire rule where you're not allowed to juice anymore. I think we kind of overcompensated for it a little bit, and maybe had the car a little over-wedged. So I was fighting tight. We were actually fastest first practice, but that was the tires out and no really read on the track. And as the track tightened up, we got tighter. We qualified 13th, which was a letdown because every race we went to last year we qualified on the pole with that car. So had to make some adjustments. I had so Jimmy obviously, but he was kind of crew chief and Kyle Reinhardt all weekend and bouncing around. But I had my good buddy Danny LaFerrier, who Timmy might know. You might know Danny from the tour. He crew chiefed the 4-car with Donnie Leah. And,
oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah. Yep.
He's good, dude. He's maybe the best help I've ever had in my life. He's awesome. And Scott Davidson was there, too, so he needs no introduction. If you're from Jersey, you know who he is. So us three kind of put our heads together and tried to give him the best feedback I could, and we came up with a plan and started the feature off 7th. Drove to 2nd and couldn't get by Janish. Really was working Janish over heavy, and he flushed me on the last restart coming to the green, which I can't blame him for. I was 4th before we even got back to the line, which I probably would have done to him too. But
you know what, Ryan? Before we go any further, first of all, you said you timed 13th. How many cars did take time?
I think right around 50.
Oh, wow.
There was a couple, like Justin Bonson didn't take time because his was broke, and there's a couple guys that didn't take time that were good. I think Andy J only took 1 lap because his car was broken. But yeah, so 13th was kind of crappy for us, and it didn't put us in the redraw for the heat race. But luckily we finished 2nd and got into the redraw for the feature from the heat. So it was all right. And then Saturday, we
before we go to Saturday, we want to talk a little bit more about Friday. There was quite a bit of scuttlebutt on Facebook. A lot of people were watching it Facebook Live. A lot of people were complaining about the restarts. Some people, I didn't get a chance to watch it. I was out working on my race car, but a lot of people were complaining that sometimes they would start you single file and sometimes they would start you guys double file. Was there any truth to that?
Yeah, so Hot Pockets called me ready to fight the Salmons.
Oh yeah, he was messaging Nancy. He was ready to rip through the boom.
And this is bullshit, and I'm like, hold on, let me tell you the whole story here, because from the outside looking in, if you're not in the driver's meeting, you don't quite understand why they're doing that. What it is sometimes it's really hard to get those shows going, and when you have double file restarts, a lot of times you get 3 or 4 restarts where you don't even get a lap. So what Danny told us at the beginning of the day, he said, if we go double file and we don't get a lap in, we're going single file for the next restart. So anytime we were a single file restart, it's because we didn't get a lap in on the restart before, which I understand. But it also, it can help you or hurt you depending on where you are. You put yourself in a position to be on the bottom a lot of times. Right. And, it could mess up your race. But it is what it is. It's the same for everybody.
All right, so they did have a predetermined formula for the restarts for single file or double file, and they did stick with it because, of course, some people from the outside looking in, not knowing that, they don't want so and so to win. They know he's going to be on the outside. They're going to stick him up there. You know what I'm saying? So that wasn't true at all.
No, it was definitely a thing that we talked about in the drivers' meeting before, and we knew was going to happen. And they did a little bit of it in the heat races. The only time that they made an exception was on Saturday when Matt Janis's radiator hose blew off.
Yes.
It restarted a single file because they didn't know what it was going to be like getting in the one, which was probably a smart move.
How did you make out when that radiator hose blew off? I've seen a lot of the top guys got caught up in that wreck.
I had just gotten by him a couple laps before that, so I was pretty lucky.
All right, thank God.
Yeah. So that was good. But yeah, that worked out for us on Saturday, where we were able to kind of pick our way through and get the lead early with some lucky restarts. The thing that people don't understand, and Timmy can attest to this from spotting, is the beginning of those races, a lot of times you're racing back to the line to wait to see where the caution falls, you know? So I was sixth. And I just passed Janish. The caution came out, so I got put back to sixth. And I knew Andy J was fourth, and his move is to gouge to the bottom. He just hooks a left on whoever's there, which is, that's fine. It's his move. But I knew it was coming, so when he hooked a left on Janish, I rolled the top and beat him back to the line. The caution came out. I was fifth. Then I was third. Then I was second. So that's the thing that a lot of guys don't understand, that you can roll the top and make some hay there instead of fighting for the bottom at the beginning of the race.
And that's basically, you can do that anywhere, I mean, Charlie Kramer, he always told me he races where they're not. He always set his cars up for the outside. There's times I go out and practice, do the same thing. I'll run 10 laps on the outside to see what I got up there,
Yeah, you don't really want to, in the indoor car, you don't want to stay up there. But if you can get a good exit of 4 and beat the guy back to the start-finish line, even if you might not make it all the way back around, you can have that spot and be in a better spot for the restart. So I wouldn't – indoors, it's tough to run up there. The only place you've been able to really make hay was Trenton, when we ran the asphalt at Trenton, because it kind of rounded off. But yeah, man, Friday night there was no top at all. It was brutal.
Now, is there, basically you are racing around an ice hockey rink at all these facilities, but is there a difference to, say, like Allentown to Atlantic City to, like, wherever else they race, like at Trenton and stuff? Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's a huge difference with Allentown, because in the middle of 1 and 2, the concrete is different. So it goes from being sealed concrete to actually porous concrete, almost like a sidewalk. So the difference in that is the sealed concrete, when you spray Coke syrup on it, it rubbers up fast because it's got Coke syrup on top of it, staying on top of it, and it takes rubber real fast. That porous concrete never takes rubber, so it's always slick. So there's an art to getting through that patch. There's an art to getting through that patch and being able to still turn off the bottom when a lot of guys tend to get tight there. And then, 3 and 4 there is pretty much a traditional indoor track. And then Atlantic City, the thing that makes it a little bit different is, one, the grates that you go over.
Yeah.
The cars are so low, especially off of 2. You really come up and go back down. It's quite a bump. And then during the race, come feature time, there's always a point in time in 1 and 2 where the rubber peels up because of the parking garage underneath it. It gets cold at some point. It always peels getting in the 1, and you got to be ready for it. Or you'll find yourself, free in or really missing the corner there.
Out of all the racetracks that you do indoors, which one do you think has the best racing surface?
I don't think any of them really particularly have a great racing surface. I think that they all have. They're all just warehouse floors more or less. But I liked Trenton a lot, like I said, because it was a little bit wider. And then I haven't run Albany, but Albany looked like it was a little bit too small, and they're saying Syracuse is actually a little bit bigger than Atlantic City. So I like Atlantic City. I think it's pretty challenging as far as just the way you drive it. Allentown also has its challenges, but I don't really favor towards any track at all. I just like trying to figure each one of them out.
Now, earlier in the interview, you mentioned that they're not letting you use the race prep this year with the indoor cars. What's the reason that they got away from that?
I think because everybody was going to die.
Yeah,
So
I hate that stuff. That stuff makes such a mess.
Yeah, it was the worst ever. And we went to Allentown a couple of years ago when the first year we went there. I think it was 4 years ago now. And when everybody unloaded and took the wrap off their tire, the fumes were so bad that there's a hospital above it that they almost had to shut everything down because the fumes were so bad. The fumes were worse in the parking garage where everybody was parked than it was when we were racing on the track.
Right.
So that was one thing. And then I think just blowback from everybody not wanting to do it anymore.
Right.
But really, the racetrack was as fast, if not faster, than it's ever been because there wasn't all that crappy rubber on the track, that everybody had different stuff in. There was legitimate, just natural Hoosier rubber.
Right.
So, I don't know, it was fun.
So, tell us a little bit what happened Saturday. I guess this through Friday. You ended up fourth on Friday, you said?
Yeah, ended up fourth. And, Friday night, the car owner came out and me with about 5 to go because I wanted to finish on the podium and still kind of root and gouge with Justin, but it would have been, me definitely rooting Justin out of the way to get the third. And, if I spin him out, I go to the back and then I make a lot less money. So I kind of took my lumps, knew that I was in a bad spot and was still going to make a good amount of money and just rode it out, finished fourth, took my lumps and cashed the check at the end of the night.
And plus you still need the car for Saturday too. So if you do something stupid on Friday fighting for one spot and you might spoil your whole weekend,
Yeah, unless it's a win, then you really don't put yourself in that position. So I was happy that I was mature enough to make that decision. Owning my own stuff definitely helps that. But I think unloading for Saturday, we were fast right away in practice. Made some decisions with Jimmy on tire choices, and just worked on keeping up the racetrack some more, and made some changes to that car, especially to the front end that we haven't really had to mess with before. That I wasn't real weary of, and wasn't huge. It wasn't like I kept telling those guys. I said, we're not trying to get in the ballpark here with these adjustments. We're just trying to figure out, where this is for the win. This isn't to get close. It's these fine-tuned things that are going to help us win this race. And really the race, once I was able to win my heat race, and then once the green flag dropped, the kid spun out right in front of me, and I was about a centimeter away from ripping my right front off.
I saw that.
Yeah, luckily he got through that.
You just made it through that one.
Yeah, I got pretty lucky there. It's just like being in a factory stock. You got to stay off the brakes and keep it turning. So yeah, I got through that. Kind of got a couple good restarts, put myself in good position, and then Kyle was just super tight, then free off. And I knew all weekend that to make the move, it was going to have to be off of 4 for what we had going on. So I was able to get underneath him off of 4 there and lead the race. Couple late race restarts, different guys lining up beside you, between Rudolph, that Briggs Danner kid who is a teenage kid from up there, and he's a wheelman. He's really good. I give that kid a lot of credit. And that Scott Kruder guy, he got me sideways one time, but that really all they had was to drive in a little bit deeper than me. I was back in the corner up, but my exit was so strong that I knew that if I just kept nailing my exit and they didn't spin me out, we'd win the race.
What lap did you take the lead on? Do you remember?
Yeah, it was lap 10. So I felt I got there a little too early, but you really had to get control of the race early because it was a little bit harder to pass. The first night we didn't win the race because Matt Janish, who we might have been maybe a half a tenth better than a lap, got the lead before us, but with a half a tenth, you couldn't do nothing with them. Because I even tried to root Janish out of the way a couple times on Friday, and I'd hit him, and then I'd go to turn, and I'd just lose my right front. So I couldn't even showtime him out of the way.
I did have a couple people wanting me to ask you a couple of questions about Allentown itself. One person asked, where do you pit at when you're at Allentown?
Yeah, so there is a parking garage. It would be if you walk directly out of turn number 2 where the opening is, it's pretty much straight back from there. It's just the lowest level of a parking garage, and they convert it into that. And then if you go out the other side, like one where you see the cars roll out for the feature, that is where you go outside and fuel and run your motors and grind your tires and everything. So it's a pretty cool setup.
But obviously, there's no heat or nothing like that, right? You're just out in the freezing
there's
cold.
heat in the bottom. There's a pretty good amount of heat in the bottom of the parking garage, and then all your trailers and everything are parked a couple blocks away. So you actually have to wheel everything down. So like if you would go into a parking garage and drive down to the very bottom, like if you go in the top level in the road level, it's 2 levels down from that. So you have to wheel your toolbox car and everything down that deal.
Oh my God!
And then back up. So it's kind of a nightmare, but.
So like Saturday night after your big win, there's no time to really go celebrate. You got to wheel all your stuff out of this parking garage and back to your trailer.
Yeah, that's the big perk of winning is you have to go to the media room and do press, so you don't really have to do it. So everybody else is rolling that stuff out while you're in there.
I'm sure you answered the questions real slow at the media center.
Yeah, that's cool.
One other question that we had a listener want me to ask you, it's also pit related. I guess everybody's so into what the pits are, is if you get a flat tire or something during the race, is there like a designated area where you can get that changed and get back out on the racetrack, or is it like a one-shot deal where if you have a problem, you're done for the night?
Yeah, so something that's new this year, which is really cool, and they started it at Trenton, is they actually used to have to exit the track and then get pushed back on. But now they've made designated pit boxes in the infield, and you're allowed to bring anything you can carry into the infield. So you can't bring toolboxes or anything like that. But you can bring 4 tires, a gun, the wheel wrench, and then maybe a radius rod or 2 if you really want to. And you can do it right in the infield. And they saw this weekend, Scott Kruder actually on Friday got a flat. They fixed it about halfway through the race, and he ended up finishing 5th. So it's actually pretty cool now. You can see the guys actually working on the car in the middle of the track, thrashing to get it back out there.
Is that something they're going to do in Atlantic City also?
I think so. Atlantic City is a little bit different animal because it kind of has a pit road built in on the back stretch there where you pull off. But I think that they want to do that, make that more of a norm, so people can kind of see if someone's going to make it back out and actually guys going to work. I think it's part of the show.
And we have one other question too. You can answer it if you want, or if you don't want to answer, you don't have to answer. And someone asked me if you get paid cash or with a check after a win.
You get paid after a win. You get paid with a check. Sometimes they pay you a little bit of cash and then a little bit with a check, but I don't know that big check they give you, you can't cash that. So,
but they look nice hanging in the garage afterwards.
Yeah, they actually took this tire samples and they sent them out, so you won't get paid until your sample's cleared.
Oh, okay, that's good.
Which is fine by me because we bought a tire, the right rear that we raced, we bought off the truck the day of, which is pretty cool. You can do that now. Right.
You don't have to take it home and massage it or anything like that.
I got a question for you.
Sure.
What'd you think of that 3-wide pass I put on you at Turkey Day?
Well, I know a lot of people were crowing over that, but I think at that time of the race, I don't know. I just let you go. Go ahead.
I didn't know if it was going to work, but that guy in the 65 had run into me so much the night before that I was going for him, and I was like, I'll try this, and
I was kind of in conservative mode. I don't even think we were past halfway yet, and Ron Booth in the 65 was real loose, and we were on lap traffic, and I seen you go, and I just moved up and said, go ahead, and have fun.
I was like, maybe that's why I couldn't keep the transmission in the thing.
And that's another thing too. I'm like, well, next restart we went green, and you were going again, so I'm like, I guess his 3-wide pass was all for nothing, All
for nothing. I'll tell you what, that car turns good, and it was that was one of the most fun races I've run. I was upset that it was over because the car I figured something out in 1 and 2 with that car to get it to turn, and I can't really explain it because it wouldn't do it every lap. You know how those cars are. The timing with the gas and the way the rear tire just runs it just one tire. It's real technical, a lot more than people say. So I was like,
well, you got to be careful getting back on the throttle because you can get that one wheel peel with the open rear.
Yeah, and then you're just dead in the water.
But another quick question, if you want to talk about Turkey Derby a little bit, you were having transmission troubles on Friday, correct, with that car?
Yeah, so we couldn't quite figure out why, and then Saturday, our Sunday, it became pretty apparent that it just kept puking all the fluid out, because I didn't realize that I don't know much about the automatic transmissions, but I didn't realize that it needs fluid in it to engage the clutch. So it kept slipping, and I'm like, the clutch is slipping in this thing. And Richie's like, oh, Richie, it's just low on fluid, dude. So we filled it up.
Even before you drove that car was always low on fluid, so there's a problem with the transmission. You know what I'm saying? I just understand why they didn't switch it out for you. I mean, Ellie had a brand new transmission for that car.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it was all good. It's not like we were just going for fun. It's not like it was racing for the championship or anything. It would have been nice, because the way that race played out, with Elliott, I passed Elliott earlier in the race. Mm-hmm. And then Shannon was probably gonna be the car to beat, and he got a flat, and Majak spun out. So I felt like I would have been in decent position, but it didn't work out. I really want to win one of those races up there though one day.
Do you plan on racing much with us next year with the factory stocks?
As much as I can, or if there's a car. I don't know if Richie and Shannon have a car or not.
I know there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going up here with factory stocks. They're trading hands like crazy up here. It's like musical chairs right now up here with factory stocks.
Like cup racing there, it's nuts. Factory cup. That's what O'Shea called it.
Yeah, factory cup.
But
it is a great division, though, isn't it?
Oh, it's my favorite. And being that, I couldn't help but think this weekend when we were sitting in that press room, they were asking questions about. I get a lot of people that ask me, well, where do you even come from? Like who are you? When you go win those races, because they're kind of. Right. They're kind of more on a level like a big Northeast level where everybody kind of pays attention. And I did an interview with a guy in Syracuse last night. He's like, I don't even know where you're from. Like, who are you? And I told him, I said, just a product of really Wall Stadium street stock guys to begin with, And I went on to tell him, it's the guys that raised me are the Russ Cooks, Richie Monjos, Glenn Osborns of the world that they're not quite the Jimmy Hortons, Doug Hoffmans, and Jimmy Blewitts that you hear of, but they're just as much racers nonetheless. And I was fortunate, I know you're going to talk to Brian next, but I was fortunate on Sundays, after my dad would have a rough night on Saturday or whatever, just go out there on Sunday to Osborne's Auto Wreckers when I was younger and help my dad rip parts out of the car, or ride around in the bucket loader with Glenny Osborne, and being raised by racers like that, you just can't. You don't realize it when you're that young, but looking back at it, you don't realize how lucky you are.
All right, now going forward, I guess the next indoor race is in Atlantic City.
Yeah, so that'll be fun.
And then, unfortunately, you said they have a race in late March or in March when it's a little late in the season for you, and you got to get back to your Cup duties. So there's a chance you might miss that race.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm excited that they're expanding the series and making it more races. It's unfortunate for me that I can't make Syracuse there in mid-March, but that's part of my being able to race for a living is having to give up maybe racing for fun at times. So hopefully maybe Justin Bonsenor can win the championship again, because I'm not going to be there for all the races or something.
What how about the dirt though? When last time we were on the show, you were getting ready to go do some dirt indoor racing. How did that work out for you?
Yeah, I really like looking at it and looking at the results. It was pretty dismal, but so I look at it from the start of the weekend. So we went out and practiced. We were decent to start. Came in, made the car better. I went out and we were fastest in our group in the second practice I ever ran a dirt car. So we started our heat race. I started last. It was based on passing points. I got the second. The throttle stuck, and I kind of hit the right side of the fence a little bit. But I was real proud of myself because I actually, when the throttle stuck off of I think I was off of 4, I just reached up and shut the switches off. So I shut it off and spun out. I got hit a couple times, but I started the car back up, and you never know how you're going to react when the throttle sticks. You always think that you're going to have enough composure to shut it off and not lock the brakes up and drive the fence. So I was proud of my brain for being able to do that. The thing that I wasn't proud of is I started the car back up and the throttle was still stuck, and I fixed it with my foot, like pulled it back, and it came undone. And I was like, oh, I'll just restart this thing. And then lo and behold, shockingly enough, the throttle stuck again on the restart, and I flipped right over. But
did you ever find out why it was sticking?
Yeah, so we were fixing the car, and we had some bent bolts and heims, and they call it W-link on the right rear. So we're fixing all that stuff, and everybody was kind of dismissing the fact that I was telling them the throttle stuck. So I said, everybody just stop. I will race this thing with bent heims and bent bolts, but if we don't fix this throttle, I'm leaving. So we started looking into it, and the cable was actually laying on the motor and had gotten hot and kind of fused together.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, we got that fixed, and I started my heat race. I was in the same heat race as Rudolph there, and him and I were just both kind of on the bottom straight, and I went from ninth to third, and it got real rutty. The track got like a lot of ruts in it, and I'd never done that before, but when a track gets a lot of ruts in it like that, you got to move around, and you really gotta figure out how to get through it. It's real technical, because if you hit it wrong, you get like super tight, or it like wants to flip you over. So from kind of going back and racing Pork-Roll Pete there at the Enduro at Wall Stadium a couple of years ago, when guys wreck and they're sitting in the middle of the track, you have to adjust your line, right?
Right.
Like just like at Flemington when they used to put the monster truck tires in the middle of the track, you have to adjust for wherever they end up. So I started going through there, arcing my corner out a little bit and driving across those ruts without having any lateral load on it. So I just drive straight through it, and doing that, opening up my entry like that, left me a little bit vulnerable, and someone come from like 2 car lengths back and stuck it in there and gave me a left rear flat, and my night was done. So we rolled out for the D main on Saturday. We were just a little too tight, and I got flushed and didn't end up transferring, but had a lot of fun, met a lot of cool people, and I look forward to doing that again someday for sure.
Do they race more indoor dirt races this year, or is it just a one-time thing?
It's just a one-time thing. I think there's rumblings of maybe trying to do in Atlantic City, and you can go run the Tulsa Shootout there that they ran last week, that they run before the Chili Bowl to get the track ready. But I'm pretty vested into the asphalt stuff, and it's just nice to be able to go home, and it was cool to drive for, someone like Lou Ciccone, who I've looked up to my whole life. Be able to get to drive his car with his number and his colors, and hang out with him and Lucas Wolf and all those guys all weekend was cool to get to know some more people in racing and make some more connections. I'll do it again.
How was the crowd there?
The crowd was pretty. I mean, it was pretty weak Thursday and Friday, but on Saturday it was the strongest Trenton crowd we've seen. I mean, Trenton's a tough place. They don't sell that place out for monster trucks. Not only do they not sell it out, they get like nobody there. It's just a hard place to sell because there's nowhere to stay around there. It's a rough area.
People don't even like parking their cars there.
Yeah, but
I got to park down the street by the railroad tracks and stuff.
But if you want crack, there's always an option to buy it.
I mean, it is right by the prison,
Yes. But
what about Allentown? From what I
hear, guys,
the crowd looked good at Allentown. How was the crowd at Allentown?
Friday, like I said again, it was a little light. But Saturday it was great. I mean, it was awesome, and it's really cool when you're sitting in the car to see how many people are there. But yeah, I think they're building something in Trenton. Allentown, they sold out the first time they ever went, but like any racetrack, they sell out the first time you ever run it, and then it kind of falls off. And Atlantic City is just it's kind of like a crown jewel event in the Northeast, so there'll always be a lot of people there.
All right, Ron, we're not going to keep you too much longer. Is anybody you want to thank? And engine builders, chassis builders, crew guys, sponsors?
Oh man, the list is too long, but I think I got to start by thanking my dad. He's got to go over there to Jimmy's, and I think it takes some years off his life having to hang out with Jimmy. I think Timmy gets to see it at times.
I was over there a couple of nights.
Or he's about ready to lose it. But yeah, I can't thank him enough, and Jimmy and everybody at Blewett, Scott Davidson, the Reinhardts, my buddy Danny the Farrier that drives down there. And then the biggest thing with them TQs, I think, is staying safe, so the joy is seeing for safe seats, and Off Axis paint for safe helmets. And I got a new sponsor this year, which is actually really cool, that Tick Mike.
Yeah, I saw that on the side of your car there.
Yeah, they were actually they were going to be Teddy's full sponsor on his TQ. So one of Teddy Christopher's good friends and a Connecticut guy, and I got hooked up with him through Jimmy, through a guy named JJ Vici. I don't even know him, but I didn't know them. I know them now, but they contacted me and asked how much. I told them, and they brought me a check to Turkey Derby. I've never met the guys, so they've been great sponsors, and it's pretty cool to have a little bit of TC riding along with us and to get to hang out with those guys because I think Timmy can attest that we kind of feel their pain of what they're going through because we've been through it, and to be able to all just come together as racers and help each other get over, it's John and Teddy. And Racing Remembrance, it's pretty cool to have his sponsor on the side of our car.
Okay, with the name of like Tick Mike, what is Tick Mike? Sounds like a pest control or something like that.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a tick and mosquito spray that goes on the just screws on the end of the hose like a fertilizer would, and you spray your backyard with it, and it kills the ticks and the fleas. So
cool.
He does pretty good. He's a fertilizer guy, and it's pretty funny because he sponsored LaJoy back in the day, and I've seen his logo around, but yeah, it's always great to have new sponsors come on board. It's awesome.
All right, you're down south all the time. You're our gossip guy down there.
You got to know Hot Pockets is the gossip guy.
Yeah. The problem is we believe what you say. We don't believe what Hot Pocket says. So we're going to ask you.
If you want the good stories that might not be true, call Hot Pockets. If you want the watered down stuff that's a little bit more believable, I'll give you a shout.
One of the stories that came out today from down south that was pretty shocking is Johnny Sauter's out of GMS Racing. Did you hear anything about that?
I saw it on Twitter, but it's a tough deal because you got to look at what the truck series is, I guess. So is it what it was when it started with with all those guys that the Hornadays and the badasses that were running it, grown men. It seems like NASCAR's not a grown man sport anymore. It's a kid sport. We need younger. We need more money, So Johnny Sauter doesn't really fit that mold. Yeah, he wins races, but I think that's the last thing that anybody looks at on resumes anymore down here. And that is what it is, especially at the truck and Xfinity level. You have to be worth a damn to get a cup ride. But truck and Xfinity level, it just seems like who can stroke the biggest check is going to get the ride. And I think that'll change in time. I think it's going to have to get a little worse before it gets better. But I've got faith that our sport, especially the feeder series, will get back on their feet.
Do you think Johnny Sauter will end up in another truck, or do you think he's going to go late model racing?
It's hard to say. I mean, what truck team is going to hire Johnny Sauter because he's a good driver?
Yeah.
Look at the kid who just won the championship.
Do you think something happened that it happened so late?
I have no idea what happened. I like I said, I just saw that he's out there. Did they say who's going to be in it? I think once they come out with who's going to be in it, if it's like
Johnny Sauter was on satellite radio, NASCAR XM radio, and he was pretty adamant that Brett Moffitt's going to be in that truck.
Well, I mean, it's hard.
He was pretty much saying it was financial, not financial where he's bringing a sponsor, but financial where he'll drive for pretty much for free. Where Johnny Sauter's still trying to,
Yeah, and that's something that down here is being a big part of the business model. Mm-hmm. You got to look at these teams are trying to save. They're pinching pennies to save hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Right.
They're lowering their personnel, and some of these guys that they're firing are making $50,000 to $70,000 a year. And then a guy like Alex Bowman replaces Dale Jr. and they save $15 million a year.
Yeah.
A guy like William Byron gets in the 24 car and he's making maybe $1 million a year, maybe $650 with maybe $650 plus bonuses. So that's a huge chunk of change. I think the days of drivers, I think really Logano's last contract's really one of the last big contracts, $7 million a year. I don't see $7 million a year contracts getting handed out much anymore.
I agree. It's a shame. It's a shame that the team owners, the way they're cutting costs now is by paying their drivers less, where they could be cutting costs in other areas, like maybe not such fancy airplanes and motorhomes and $1 million golf carts to ride around with, but it's the drivers that are taking the hit, and I guess other personnel too. You think the crew chiefs are taking pay cuts now too?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a couple of years it's going to be worse than it is now. But the problem is one of the big problems that I see just looking at it is that everybody got really rich really fast off NASCAR.
Right.
A lot of people made a lot of money, and a lot of people want to protect their investment, and they want to protect their investment and they put their money in front of the wellness of the sport. And that is what has hurt. That's what has hurt this the most. From what I see, in my objective opinion, I think that the people who are running the sport have gotten so rich that they don't really care who's in the grandstands or whatnot. I think the new leadership does, but I think the guys that were leading the ship in the last 3 years ago, they didn't care who was in the grandstands as long as the TV money was coming in. That's because you make way more money off TV than you do off of ticket sales, and they really didn't put as much into it as they should. And I think that this new president, Steve, I forget his last name all the time, but he seems to be short track oriented, and the schedule's probably going to look a lot different next year and have some new old tracks in it. Maybe a Nashville Fairgrounds, maybe maybe a track like Myrtle Beach for an Xfinity series or a truck series, which is what we need to get back to. I think we need to get back to the roots of this, and it's just right now it seems to be a broken business model.
I agree. All right, Ryan.
Racing's alive and well, though.
What's that?
Factory stock racing at Wall Stadium's alive and well.
Factory stocks are the best they ever been. So it's going good up here. And you know what? Local short track racing up this way has rebounded. The gas prices are low now. It seems like everybody's over the bad economy and everybody's coming back to the racetrack. I mean, we're doing good up here with car counts and stuff now. It's good to see. It is weird that it seems like the short tracks, when the Cup was doing real good, everybody was going to the Cup races and no one was going to the short track races. Now that you mention it, it definitely seems to reverse now. No one's going to the Cup races anymore. Everybody's just going to short track racing on Saturday and Sundays and Friday nights and stuff. So yeah, it did do a little bit of a reversal. So in my world, racing is great right now.
I think you get more.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Level. I think so for sure, and I think that the quality of racing is really good, and it's a quick show. If you can be out of there by 9 o'clock with your family and do all that stuff, I've always thought that short track racing. That there's a lot of good promoters up there. If you look what Brett Deo's been able to do, and some of the ROC series and the Tri-Track series and all that stuff up north, they've been able to do some really good stuff with some short tracks. So I don't know. I had this conversation actually with Brad Keselowski in the middle of the summer, and he kept saying that he was I was kind of just in the middle of a conversation, and he was talking about wanting to get. Trying to get new fans. And I said, I feel like we just need our old fans.
Right.
Let's just get the racers that are racing every week in the grandstands and stop worrying about the guys that are watching football, because there's enough racers in the country to sustain us all. I mean, if you look at the following the World of Outlaws has not just the sprint cars, but the dirt late model. I mean, dirt late models are just as big as sprint cars are. Big block dirt modifieds. How many people do you know that love short track racing but don't watch a NASCAR race?
Oh yeah, tons of them. But you know what? And I give Brad Keselowski a lot of credit, because he's someone that is sort of putting his money where his mouth is, because he knows that NASCAR suffering fan wise, and he does a great job during the race weekend. He'll go out with his wife and his daughter in the golf cart. He'll ride around the campground with his golf cart and hand out stuff. He'll hand out a Miller Lite stuff and T-shirts and cars and whatever. He's got coolers and stuff. And now that he's been doing that, I've been noticing other people been kind of copycatting him a little bit, and they're doing it too. This is what these guys need to do. They got to stop after the races or even during the weekend. They just disappear. They got to get out and start, talking to the fans and meeting people and stuff like that, keeping them interested. Yeah,
I think Brad is very forward thinking, and he understands that, the sport is how we all eat, and he's really good about it. And I wasn't trying to bash him there. I just said, maybe we need to find a way to get our old guys back instead of focusing on new ones.
A quick Brad Keselowski question. When he shut his truck team down, he kept saying, "Oh, but I'm going to still have my shop, and I'm going to do like some type of production business out of there or something like that." What do you ever do with that building? What's going on in that building?
I believe he has 3D printers, and that's what he's doing, 3D printing out of there. Okay,
so he did do something with it.
Yeah, I think he's trying to work with OEMs and do 3D printing for different is what I understand is what he's trying to get into. But yeah, that was a bad deal, but it's just not economic. I mean, if you're losing $1 million a year,
and he was winning, his truck teams were winning, and they were losing $1 million a year.
Yeah, I mean, you go to Eldora,
Do you know what you know what it is to win Eldora? It's like 15 grand or 16 grand to win Eldora.
Right.
Like what? They pay a late model race like 100 grand to win there.
Yeah.
So, but I think NASCAR. What's that?
I was gonna say it's about bragging rights, I think, more than the money for that one.
Yeah, but bragging rights don't pay the bills. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. I'm just saying. I think that's what that one's about. I mean, it's kind of like. Daytona may have more money, but you want to say that you won Daytona, or just like the guys that come in and run the Indy 500 as a one-off, just so they can say that they ran it or they won it or whatever, regardless of the pay.
Yeah, no, and I agree. I mean, that's why you see a lot of different guys run that race, but that's why you also see some teams shy away from it because, when you're trying to keep the doors open, the bragging rights don't really do much for you. But I think it's a badass race. I wish we had more of them. I just wish they paid 50 grand instead of 15.
That's for sure. Ryan, another thing that was real crazy in the last couple of weeks was Ross Chastain's deal falling through and the DC Solar closing and then Chip Ganassi closing down that team. Did you have any friends over there that might have lost their jobs in that mess?
I haven't really talked to anybody from Ganassi directly, but our gas man, Andrew Lackey on the 12 car, is Ross's roommate. Okay. So they're like best friends and roommates. So, yeah, it's tough, man. You see a lot of sponsors that jump in with both feet like that, kind of always get in trouble. I don't know, and that stinks because those guys. I mean, when do you see a sponsor go get a driver anymore? They went and handpicked Ross and put him in that car. He won some races, and they were going to put him in a full-time car. That was like a breath of fresh air because someone was going to finally be a racer again, And yeah, bad deal. That guy got in a lot of trouble.
What's your friend saying Ross's attitude's like right now? He's got to be going nuts over that deal.
I asked today, I said, how's Ross doing? And he said, and I quote, he's a miserable little prick right now.
Really can't blame him. I mean, the only good thing about Ross, he does have a cup ride, right? He will be racing this year.
Yeah, I think he'll be driving that 15 car. Mm-hmm. It sucks. It sucks bad, but it's like I said, it's the world that we're living in right now. And because of what he was able to do last year, I think that he'll be looked at a little bit more than others. So I'm excited for my buddy Corey. He's got a full-time cup ride.
Yeah, that's great. He took over the 32 car that what's the driver's name that's leaving that? Matt Benedetto's leaving that to go over to the 95 car. So Corey's doing the full season with that 32 car?
Yeah, I keep telling him every time he does something different, I'm like, man, you're a lot different now that you're a chartered cup driver. Before you had a charter, you were a lot cooler. But yeah, he's got a full year, and I'm excited for him. And there's a lot of moving and shaking going on down here, but I think that this year's racing product will be a lot different with the car's new aero package and everything, and I'm excited to be a part of it.
I got a question about that 32 car. Maybe you can answer for us. That started out as Frankie Stoddard's car. Is Frankie Stoddard still involved with that team at all, or is he out of there now?
I don't think he is. I don't think he's involved in it at all. But I don't know that for a fact, but I don't think so.
Right.
So I can't answer that 100% fact, though.
Well, that's good Corey got the ride, though. Do you know how that ride came about? Did he have sponsorship, or did they just call him? Or
I believe Joey Gase was supposed to be in that car.
Okay.
And something fell through there. And Corey had Schluter Systems that helps him out. And they were able to bring a little bit. I mean, it's not a crazy budget, but a little bit. And they were Archie, the guy who owns that team, really has been keeping an eye on Corey, and Corey's been able to do well with what he's had. Brian and the 72 guys at TriStar really do a good job for an underfunded team. But at the end of the day, Corey's nervous about motors next year because it's going to be like a speedway race, a lot of races, and speedway races are pretty much just rolling dyno sheets,
Yeah.
So he feels like he'll have a better shot with, the Roush Yates motors and see what he's able to do.
All right, Ryan. So your next race is Atlantic City?
Yeah, I'll see you guys there. Everybody going?
Yes.
I'll be there.
Scott will find a way to get a wedding or something going.
I know, man. I tell you, man, I'm busy these winter months. You know.
Timmy, you ready for Hot Pocket's wedding?
Yeah, can't wait.
I heard that Crowley's going to be there, so that should be good.
Yeah.
So Hot Pocket's getting married in New Jersey, not in North Carolina.
Yeah, New Jersey. Hey, just for the record, I want to let everybody on here know that Timmy Riegelman was cheering for Eric Rudolph this weekend.
Hey, Rudolph's a friend of the show too, so we do have to pull for him. But yeah, Ryan Flores is a friend of the show.
The question is, did Scooter call you to congratulate you?
I think I must have missed it.
Maybe
I missed service.
So did you have a Flores family reunion at Allentown, or was it just Marco out there?
Yeah, it's just Marco. Nobody else showed up. I had I married my wife, so she's a Flores now, and I have my kids, so there's 4 of us. I'll just claim all of us. But yeah, no
Keith, no Eric.
Keith texted me and said he wasn't able to make it, and Eric had something going on, but that's all right. I mean, it's all good.
All right, cool. We'll let you go. We're going to take a little bit of a break. Once again, congratulations on the win. Hopefully you can do it again in Atlantic City, and keep in touch.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, this is Sam Ballard from the RPM Podcast. Planning an event and looking for a great time? Go no further than RC2U Racing for all your portable family entertainment. RC2U turns any occasion into a competition. Check them out online at rc2uracing.com.
Part 2 of episode 124 of the RPM podcast. We want to thank Ryan Flores for coming on and talking with us for a good hour about everything he's got going on in racing. Now we would like to welcome in the 2017 and the 2018 four-cylinder champion, 19-year-old Brian Osborn. What's going on, Brian?
What's going on, boys?
We're glad to have you on, man. You're a little bit in the rumor mill this year with the racing season. I mean, you've been kicking butt in the four-cylinder division. Like I said, you were the champion in 2017. You were also the champion in 2018. You're tied for first place on the overall wins list at Wall Stadium in the four-cylinder division. What's that, 14 wins?
Yeah, 14 wins.
And that's with Jimmy Myers, right?
John Myers, I think.
I think his name is James Myers. James Myers.
Yeah, James, that's it.
So, yeah, we'd like to see you get one more win in that division, and this way you'd be the, leading it all by yourself. But part of the rumor mill is that you're selling your four-cylinder and maybe going factory stock racing. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Well, this winter, it's still winter, but the off season, we had a couple sponsors approach us with they want to see me move up. They see I have talent, and they want to see me move up. And we were thinking about going sportsman racing, but they wreck a lot. So
that's Josh's favorite division.
It's a lot more money. So we were shopping around for a factory stock for a little bit. Went over to where Richie Monjo, we were looking at the cars he had. They weren't really in our budget. So we looked at a couple cars, and then my dad saw Whitey Miller's cars for sale at the swap meet at Wall Stadium. And my dad called him up, got his number off of I forget who, but got his number. We called him up and went and looked at it, and my dad really liked the car. The cage was nice. It's the biggest thing. He's like, he used to race Flemington Enduro cars, no roll cage, and now he's caring how the welds look in the cage for me. Yeah, we ended up buying Whitey Miller's car.
Oh, that's great. That's a great car. Whitey Miller's cars are already very, very clean. If a lot of people don't know, but Whitey Miller is like a very, very good mechanic. He's had auto shop repair businesses all his life. He's meticulous. He builds great race cars. You never see his car smoke, break down, leak oil, nothing. That's always a fast car. I'm a little disappointed that Whitey Miller sold out only for one reason, is because as long as Whitey Miller was racing, I'm not the oldest guy in the division. Now with him selling, there's going to be a day when I'm going to be the oldest guy in the division. What did Whitey say? Is Whitey getting out, or is he still racing, or what's he doing?
He said he's going to go race that vintage car he has now.
Okay. Is that a modified, or did you see it?
I think it's a modified.
Okay.
The dirt car, I think.
Okay, vintage cars are cool.
So, what other older drivers are in the division right now.
Well, I mean, there's a few older than me. Tim Majak, he's new to racing, but he's older than me. I think he said he's 52. I'm 45. Okay. There's a few other ones that are a little bit older than me. Not many, though. I'm getting up there. I don't plan on going anywhere anytime soon, so there'll be a time where I'll be the oldest guy in the division. What is your plan with the factory stock? Do you plan on racing the full season, or are you still going to dabble with the 4-cylinder a little bit, or what do you want to do, Brian?
The biggest thing is we have the car now. Now we have to kind of get sponsorships to help us out the whole year and make sure we can finish the year. My dad wants to go for Rookie of the Year and see where we end up in points. I'll be happy wherever we finish in points for our first year, you know what I mean?
Right.
And, I think we'll dabble with the 4-cylinder a little more, maybe travel a little bit with both cars or not.
I know in years past you had a little conflict with school. I know you were in high school when you first started racing, and then you were attending UTI, looking at a career in auto mechanics. Where are you at with that now? Have you graduated, or do you still have to go to school, or are you free to race now?
Well, when I first started going there, I didn't really have a job when I first started, so it was good. I could leave on Friday night from school. It's about an hour and a half from where I live. And so I would get home Friday, and then obviously I'd be there Saturday morning, get the car ready help my dad get the car ready for Saturday. But then I got a job up there, and I'd have to leave at 12, so I wouldn't get home till 2, 3 o'clock because of traffic and stuff like that, because you go right by Philly. And so we would barely make practice. And, my dad used to joke when he raced for his buddy Satch, he would always say, you always have to practice. But my dad would always joke around and be like, I forgot the track changed from the week before.
Your dad he'd say that even when he come race like Keith Flores' factory stock or street stock with us, he would never even practice at Turkey. I mean, one year he went out and won. He'd be like, they haven't changed his track since 1950. I know my way around. I don't need to practice. Glenn's never been a practice guy, and I think that's from the enduros. The enduros don't give you practice. You roll out on the track and you race.
Yeah. Sadly, I've only seen a couple of his enduros. I saw him win at New Egypt. And when I was real young, I was probably about 1 year old. I was in Victory Lane at Flemington. That's one of my memorabilia pictures of me and my racing career, I guess you could say.
Yeah, but you were there for his last win.
Yeah.
You know whose car he was driving for his last win, don't you?
Your car.
That's right. We let Glenn drive my car, and I think it was a past champions race or something, wasn't it?
The first year they did it. They had the past champions. That was the first time and last time they did it. I don't know why.
Yeah, so that was good. We got Glenn in my car because he fit in it. That's when I was a big guy, and Glenn was a big guy. And I had Jerry Kramer set up to drive my car, and then last minute, Glenn needed my car to fit in, and Jerry could fit someone else's car, so they actually switched cars, and Glenn got to drive my car, and he went out and won the race. That was really cool to see your family celebrating in Victory Lane with my car. It was good. It was good to give back to Glenn. A lot of people don't know, but Brian's a lot like me. He's a third-generation racer. His grandfather raced. My grandfather raced. Brian's father, Glenn, raced. And my father, Sam, raced, and we're third-generation drivers. So it's real cool that, his family's been involved in racing. I was really glad to help him out that night and let Glenn get his last win in one of my cars.
Wasn't it the same race Terry Kane was in Orange Crush for?
He might have been.
I think that's what it was.
Yeah. I know there was a few. There was Steve Springsteel. He was out there. Yeah. I think J.R. Hellberg was second to your father.
They raced for a little bit for the lead, and then my dad eventually passed him.
And he was in Joey's car, his son Joey's car. So it was actually a really good race, and it was cool that Glenn got to win in the car. Yeah, it was a good race. Now that you're getting a factory stock, you think your dad might put a big seat in it so he might use in there every once in a while and take the ride from you at all?
Yeah, we were already joking about that because ever since I drove that my teammate car when my 4-cylinder got wrecked this year, it had a full containment seat in it, and I really liked it, how you don't move around the seat so much.
Oh, yeah, it
so
helps.
I was really shopping seats, and he goes, so you're getting an 18-inch seat, right? I'm like, I'm not going to fit an 18-inch seat. He goes, no, so I can fit in it. So, if I get pissed off, if I get pissed off at you, I can drive it. And I was like, whatever floats your boat.
Would you like to thank your sponsors that help you purchase this car? Who do you have on board? Who really twisted your arm to move up a division?
There's a couple sponsors pitched in. Got to thank Pete Nelda's, George and Bubba. I got to thank Bryce's Napa, Greenleaf Gardens for all their help they've done in the last 3 years in the 4-cylinders, and they're going to follow in this year. Janda Limousine, North American Construction, all my sponsors that helped me this year, especially. And then a big thanks to my dad. I wouldn't be anywhere without him, really.
Now you house the race car right in your backyard in the garage that your father built. Kyle Sisko in the past also kept his sportsman car there. Is he still in your garage with you guys?
Yeah, he's still in our garage.
So you guys help each other working on the cars. You help with the sportsman, and he helps with your 4-cylinder and factory side.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, depending on what we need.
That was always a joke between me and your father. We built our garages about the same time, and I insulated mine, heated it, put electricity in it, and he took a while to do all that. Do you finally have electricity out there and heat or anything out in that garage?
Yeah, we have a turbo here, but we found electric in there a couple of years ago when Glenn Slocum drove Cisco's modified at Wall. The deal was, you can keep the car in our garage, but we got to finish the electric and insulate it and everything. But it's pretty much just if it gets heat now, it'll be done.
Yeah. Oh, good. You guys are living large back there now. Then.
Yeah.
What is the plans with Whitey's car? Are you leaving it exactly the way it is, or are you looking to redo it a little bit over the winter? Or?
My dad has a couple ideas. Like, I think we're going to put a new body on it, put a Monte Carlo body on it. And he wants to add a couple bars. So we'll see what happens. Maybe change the setup a little bit. It's a little soft for his liking.
So you got the car completely turnkey with engine, trans, everything?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
I was going to do one quick note. We were talking about Ross Chastain in the NASCAR stuff before. Funny thing, it's been 20 years this year since his mom took her top off in that soccer game.
Was that really her?
No, I don't know. I don't think they're related. But Chastain still.
Yeah, I saw that.
Randy Chastain.
But yeah, I remember that. I'm sure Brian doesn't remember that. He's on.
No, it's probably an infant by then.
If it was 20 years ago this year, and you said you're 19, I believe.
Yeah, I don't think I was alive then. Yeah. My birthday's the end of the month, so I definitely wasn't alive.
Right.
I mean, I was alive, but just not out in the real world yet.
Yes. But, yeah, that was just a fun little side note I wanted to throw out there.
Scott, you got to ask him the food question.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you have been to a lot of racetracks like all of us. I mean, you grew up in racing, even back to quarter midget days and traveling all over with your father with the Enduros and going down south to races. We always ask people on our show, what are some of their favorite concession food items you ever eaten at a racetrack? And you also had a special at Wall Stadium. One of the perks at Racing Wall Stadium, if you win a race, they let you name a sandwich after yourself in the concession stands.
Yeah.
What did you pick out when you did that?
Last year I forget what I did, but this year I did like a trash can, a cheeseburger with like pork roll on it.
Right.
That was my deal. But I gotta say, I've been to a lot of racetracks around this New Jersey, Pennsylvania area, and Bridgeport has a lot of good food. I usually just stick with the simple like chicken fingers and fries. Wall stepped up their game a year ago, whatever. That they're pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty much what Josh does. Josh is a go-to chicken finger and French fry guy. And he never steps out of his box.
Whoa! The cheesesteaks.
Cheesesteak.
Yeah, cheesesteaks.
I got to mention that deal a little bit when you win a race and you get to name an item in the concession stand. I had a little bit of trouble. When I got to do it, I felt like I had my hands tied a little bit. Like every time I would talk to Diane, I want this on this, and she's like, "Oh, we don't have that. We don't have that. We got to do it this way. You got to do it that way." It really didn't turn out to be what I wanted. But did you have a little trouble picking out what you wanted to?
Yeah, like the first time I wanted like this over the top thing, and she was like, "Oh, that's gonna be too expensive," and I was like, "Oh, I mean, whatever." So I cut like the side off, but it's whatever.
I wanted a foot-long hot dog with baked beans on it, and I did get it. The only downfall of it was we did it on hot dog night, so it was like $4 for my hot dog or $1 for a regular hot dog. So
Yeah.
I had a good sandwich. It's just on a bad night, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you. Here's an idea because I know that I'll never get the win. The old fat sandwiches from, you remember the grease trucks up at Rutgers there?
Yeah.
I know they used to do some fat sandwiches. I think this was going back before the Krauses took over.
You can tell we have an Osborne on the show that we're talking about food for most of the race here.
Anyway, what you do, you start with a cheesesteak, then you throw the chicken fingers on it, then you throw French fries, and then you throw mozzarella sticks on it, and maybe some ketchup, salt, pepper on that thing.
And that's understandable because they have all those items at the concession stand.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But now it's just one massive thing that you don't know how to put it in your, mouth.
But then, like Brian, from Diane's point of view, she does have all that stuff, and she can make that sandwich. But
It would just be too expensive.
It's too expensive. Now it's a $12 sandwich. Who's going to buy it? You know what I'm saying?
I would buy it.
Well, you're a rich guy. All the money, the RPM podcast.
Yeah, well, I would say the reason I can't afford to do the racing is because I'm spending too much money on food.
Now, Brian, you're moving from a front-wheel drive car to a rear-wheel drive car. Do you have any experience in a rear-wheel drive car?
I mean, I could say quarter midgets, but quarter midgets aren't it's basically a generator motor. We have a couple horsepower. I drove a Sportsman a couple turkey derbies ago.
I remember that. You drove Jandas, right? The yellow 30.
Yeah, Phil Jandas. That's really my only rear-wheel drive V8 experience. I mean, it's a whole different ball game. 4 cylinders out left field, right field is anything V8 rear-wheel drive.
Right.
With the 4-cylinder, you get any bit of sideways, you just steer where you want to go and floor it, and then the front tires pull it out. Even I raced New Egypt twice this year with my 4-cylinder. Well, I raced my teammate Jen Schultz 4-cylinder the first time. She was a little scared because when she went out for warm-ups, the track was still kind of muddy.
Yeah,
I would say, and she didn't like it. So I went out for the feature, and it was just they had those URC wingless sprint cars there. And it just tore up the track, and it was like I was on rumble strips the whole time. But that was my first time driving dirt, and that was pretty fun. And then I drove my car there after it got wrecked, and I got to thank Surfside Collision for fixing that. But I drove that there, and that was actually really fun because I was a little more comfortable in my car, trying to search for lanes and stuff like that. And front wheel drive, you're not really sliding, but New Egypt's a lot different than Wall Stadium.
Now, you raced the last few seasons in the 4-cylinder for D&D Motorsports, which is Dave and Dennis.
Yeah.
Will they be affiliated with you at all with this factory stock, or are you solely on your own now with this car?
I think it's more solely on our own. They said they'll still help us. We kind of tried to keep the factory stock on the low. And Dave Schultz, he said that he wanted my dad said he was going to give him a bolt pin, and it was kind of a coincidence that we got the factory stock that same day, and we had the first cylinder out of the garage, and he showed up to our house, and we rolled the factory stock in the garage. And he said he can't be mad because we really didn't ask them for much help, really, money wise. We kind of just maintained the car at our house, and they helped us in the pits and stuff like that.
Right.
And we helped Jen, put a motor in her car this year, and hopefully she got a new motor for her car next year, and it'll be good as long as they figure out what they're doing with the tire deal. That's another reason why we kind of really went to a factory stock.
Yeah, that is another rumor floating around, Josh. I don't know if you heard anything about it, but they're talking about going to a spec tire in the 4-cylinder division. From the outside looking in, it's a good idea, but as I researched it more, it's going to hurt the cars because when they did it with the factory stock division, it didn't hurt us as bad because we have different gear ratios we can go to, where the 4-cylinder guys are limited, and a way they make up for having limited transmissions and gear selections, they run different size tires. They can run a smaller tire or a bigger tire to help their gear ratios. Now, if they go to a spec tire with one size, it could hurt a certain type of car.
More than another, yeah.
Hurt the division. A lot of people are not happy with that. Brian, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, when that rumor came out, me and my dad were looking online, like at transmission ratios and stuff like that, because it's not like a factory stock where there's a rear end and you could change the gears and stuff. Like the gears are in the transmission in the front, so really you're gonna have to change a whole transmission. And the tires we run are like 71 inches. They're really low profile, like diameter wise.
Right.
And if we go to the big Hoosiers, they're probably like 75 to 80, I would say, roughly. Because when Cisco had a 4-cylinder at Mahoney Valley, they had those 14-inch Hoosiers, and they were about like 4 or 5 inches bigger than what we have now. And we would lose we were looking at the next transmission we could run. We would have to run second gear, but we'd gain 1,000 RPM. And I'm already running 65 at the end of the straightaway. Going 75, you're kind of pushing, blowing up.
Right. But with the bigger tire, it might put you back down into the 6s. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. You'd have to go to a different transmission because you're going to lose too much RPM with the transmission I have now.
Right.
The transmission I have now has the tallest third gear per wall. It helps, but
now that's with the Saturn. Will this bigger tire help a different brand car like a Honda or a Dodge Neon or something like that?
Well, those Dodge Neons, like the one,
they run the big tires, don't they?
Yeah, the single cam Dodge Neons. I feel that they won't get hurt as much because if they're about the same size, they're just going to run as what they regularly run.
Right.
But every other car that doesn't run big tires, I feel like it's going to hurt. But I feel whoever's fast last year is going to be fast this year. It's just that everybody's going to be slower. You know what I mean?
So what are the chances of this tire roll going through? Are you pretty sure it's going to happen, or do you think it's just a rumor?
I don't know. I think it's just a rumor because they said they were going to have a meeting after the 1st. I mean, it's only the 9th. You know, it's getting down to the deadline where guys are going to start working on their cars and stuff like that.
Right.
They said if they do enforce it, they'll enforce it till June 1st, and they'll enforce it on June 1st, like they did with the factory stocks, like halfway through the season. And that's another really reason we push towards the factory stock, because if we go to those Hoosier tires, it's going to open a whole new can of worms of clearances for the tires hitting the fenders.
We had all the same problems with
that.
We had all the same problems with the factory stock tires because these Hoosiers are monsters compared to our DOT tires, and we had to go through all the same stuff. But luckily, we had room to play. Like we said, we could, everybody went from 373 gears to 410s, and it put us right where we were. And then we just, a lot of people stiffened their cars up, because the tires had a softer sidewall and stuff like that. And now that we're on them, we're getting around pretty good. They actually slowed us down. A lot of people thought we were going to go faster on a Hoosier racing tire. They actually slowed us down. We're just getting up to where we were now, with making a lot of changes.
They're a bit thinner, though, right, Scott?
They do cut easier, so you do have to be careful. Who's your tire? You can't really rub up on someone like a DOT tire, and if it is rubbing your fender, it's going to cut down a lot quicker than a DOT tire too.
That's another thing. Like with these,
they're lighter too. They were like 5 pounds a piece lighter, so now your car was 20 pounds lighter, so you had to make up for that too.
That's another thing. It's like guys are saying it's cheaper. Yeah, it's cheaper until you bang wheels and then you pop a tire and you hit the fence, and now you got about $1,000 more you got to put in your car because we went to these Hoosiers.
Right.
The same way at Mahoney, they run those 14 inches, and they had to all run 3-inch offset on the left side and 2-inch on the right. So the tire's really sticking out on the right side. So if you tap, you'd pop the tire and you'd be done.
Right.
What if everybody in the 4 cylinders went to the 240SX? I think Mike Wall ran one for a while. I mean, then you have rear-wheel drive. You have a rear gear you can mess with.
I mean, I think the move, if they're going to do that, is good towards like a Mustang more.
That's what Darren Burge is building.
Yeah, Darren Burge has one. I think Ron Lane has one. But the problem with those Mustangs, they're heavy compared to like a little 4-cylinder car because they're still kind of like a big car.
And the frames are real thin on them. Like they're just like sheet metal frames, and we're not allowed to run a lot of bars in these cars up here in the 4-cylinder division. So the frames are real flimsy in those Mustangs.
I thought the problem with the Mustang is that it runs through crowds.
They're Fords on top of that. But Brian, it's funny that you mentioned that you and your dad were sitting at a computer. I just can't picture your dad sitting at a computer. I'm sure he doesn't put his hands on it. I'm sure you got to do all the navigation through the computer, and he just reads what you show him.
He's getting pretty good now. We got him a smartphone, stuff like that. He has Facebook.
I know. I got a text message from Glenn Osborne the other day. I was totally shocked that he knew how to text.
It takes him a little bit, but if you wait on his text you back.
And he even comments on Facebook, and I could have swore he had put like a happy face on one the other day. I was really, really.
It wasn't on purpose.
He would bash us because me, my mom, my sister would always had smartphones, and he'd be like, "I don't need that smartphone. I'll just stick with my flip phone." And ever since he got one, he can't take. He's always on it because he'd yell at us, "Get off your phones!" And then we say it to him. It's just funny. It's just he goes from the computer to that, and like you can do all the things that you do on the computer on your phone.
Right.
It's just a smaller screen, But he's doing good with the computer stuff. He's all old school, but he's learning the new school stuff.
Now you mentioned that you have a sister. Did she ever race quarter midgets, or does she have any interest in maybe racing?
We tried. Me and my dad tried to convince her, but she's more. She does dance and stuff like that, so that's more her hobby.
Same thing.
Well, that's kind of good, Brian, because if she wanted to race, then some of the fun's got to go her way, and then you spread a little thin over there. I mean, I got the same situation. We got 2 cars with me and Nancy racing now. It's a lot of extra work. But it makes it fun. It makes it more fun.
It's like we almost. He still has his Enduro car from Flemington.
I know. I keep twisting his arm to try to get that thing running.
And he was really like, when we started looking at factory stocks, he goes, "You know what? I'm about to just put that in the garage and we'll build it for Wall Stadium." And I said, "I'm down to do whatever, whatever makes you happy. I'm the driver. You're the crew chief. Whatever, I want to get it done for him so he can race down at Bridgeport because
right.
Kevin,
I tell you what, it would have been cool if you took your dad's car and built it for Wall Stadium, because it'd be something different. That's a long wheelbase car, and everybody's running the metric chassis now. That would have been cool to see you bring out a long wheelbase car. Josh at one point was building one too, just like that car, big 2-door.
I have it still.
You still have that?
Yeah. Do you want it, Scott?
Sure, I'll come get it.
We have
park it right next to Glenn Osborne, so they can sit there for 10 years.
We have another car sitting there, so down the road, if we get his car together, we have another car for me to build. He really wants me to try dirt, so I get the whole control on the rear-wheel drive car.
Right.
It's like I said, it's 2 different playing fields.
What other car do you have sitting there?
At our house, I have my Enduro car that I first raced. That's how I first started racing 4 cylinders. Mm-hmm. We got a Pontiac Sunfire from Blewitts, actually.
Right.
It took us 2 years to build an Enduro car because, like I said, my dad's very conscientious about me driving a race car. So we put a whole cage in it and stuff like that.
Right.
I raced 3 races with it. I raced it at Mahoney Valley. Twice. My first race, I lasted 98 laps before the power steering pump overheated and melted. And then he goes, cut the belt. And then it's a serpentine belt, so then it shuts everything off.
So then you had nothing.
Yeah. So we didn't finish that night. And then the second time I raced it, I finished 10th, which I was pretty happy with. After we got a flat early in the race, I bounced off the fence. But, finishing.
You should put your dad's car together and come race Big Diamond with me on a Friday night.
Yeah, it's I want to get that for him because Kevin Flores, he has that one car that I forget. Someone drove it this year at Bridgeport. I was over there when we were talking to.
Yeah, the green car, right?
Yeah, he said I can run that down at Bridgeport one night, and I said I'm down to try it because
the world famous AJ Jadaki drove that car down there at Bridgeport.
Okay, that's right.
You ran good in it too, but there again the transmission started leaking on it and he started smoking real bad. But that car is fast.
Yeah, but the only really dirt track experience I've ever had is the first year they tried to do quarter midgets at Trenton. They tried to put Coke syrup down for quarter midgets. we have 6.5 horsepower. But so it was literally like a dirt track. We were just sideways the whole time, and good thing, I have my dad. He was like, you got to go in there and you got to dime in the corner. Because if you slid up enough, we would slide. Because they didn't really block off the TQ track, really. So you would slide, you hit the TQ track, get grip, and then you just go, like, dime in the track, really. Because with quarter midgets, you can run kind of like an open or locked rear, but they have a hub on the left rear that locks and unlocks. Well, in the heat race, we were unlocked. So it was screaming, but we were just spinning one tire. I almost won the heat race. But then in the feature, I lapped everybody with the top 3. And it kind of surprised me because I've never raced dirt in my life. And there was a lot of, like, dirt guys that came to that race. And by the time I went to my other car, it was everybody, all the bigger kids were running the TQ track. And that was an experience too, because it was kind of like a dirt track where there was an inside and an outside. So the one time I pulled a slide job, I turned early, went down to the slick and slid back up on the TQ track. But,
what did you do with all your quarter midget stuff? Is that all sold and gone?
Yeah, it's been gone. I 2013, I stopped racing quarter midgets. I raced from 06 to 13, and we sold my cars pretty quick. The one car we sold pretty quick, like within a couple months of me retiring. And then the other car we had for a little bit, but we sold that one too. And actually, one of my cars, the kid that raced it is Lisa Erm's son was racing one of my cars this year at Wall, so it was kind of cool, and he did pretty good in it.
Have you ever gone back from one of those retired drivers races?
I did it the year after I retired, and I was way too big for it to fit in the quarter midget.
Already 1 year out, you're already too big?
Well, I was – what the reason really why I retired is because when you get real big in a quarter midget, you start leaning out.
Right.
And when you start spinning out, the cars just get top heavy from you being so tall. You just flip on your side. Well, I got me and this guy, he locked his right rear with my left rear, and I hopped his right rear, and I landed on the top of my cage, and I could have got a lot more hurt than I already was. I got road rash on my shoulder, and I got a lot of bruising, but that was the real key of why we retired. But like I said, I did that retiring driver's race, and I couldn't reach the brake pedal. There was a big wreck in front of me, and I just bounced off the fence. I bent the axle in the kid's car, but it was pretty funny the way it was. But I finished second, but I'll take it.
Now, your family was also big in the demolition derbies back in the day. Is there any chance you might do a demolition derby at Wall Stadium?
I've always told my dad I want to at least try something once, because I got him I have more wins than him at Wall Stadium, but every time I say that, he's like, yeah, how many enduro wins do you have? And that shuts me up right there.
Demolition derbies too. He was the destroyer back in the day. He used to do real good.
It was funny when we went to Whitey Miller's garage. He had a picture of my dad up on the wall. It was pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, Whitey was a big demolition derby guy back in the day too.
What about Cadillac Sam?
Well, we don't hear from Sam Ballard Jr. anymore, so I guess we don't have to talk about Cadillac Sam. We got Brian Osborn. His dad's a big demolition derby guy, so we can talk about Glenn Osborne now instead of Cadillac Sam. But you would be willing to do a demolition derby at Wall Sam? They pay pretty good over there now.
Yeah, it looks like the 4-cylinder one's a little easier to win than the V8 ones, but
yes,
because those guys from Pennsylvania and Delaware come with heavy hitters in the V8.
Yeah, well-built cars.
But I'm not shy to at least try it once. I'll try anything once.
Yeah, I was in the junkyard at Blewitz, a few years ago, maybe last year or 2 years ago, and your dad was building one car, but I thought you were supposed to drive it. I think a Little John ended up driving it.
Yeah, because that was the year I raced that Sportsman at Wall, and Jimmy and Jimmy helped my dad out with the Sportsman because I was at school, and Little John let me borrow his helmet because I didn't have any of the spotter stuff.
Yeah.
My helmet. So he let me. I borrowed his. To be honest, it was the weirdest experience I've ever had. From never having a spotter before to having a spotter, right. It was like my dad's always in my head, and I was like, because when we went out for time trials, I didn't really time trial well because a late model, a couple cars ahead of me, leaked on the track. So the track still had speedy dry and stuff on that. So the track wasn't really that good. So I didn't really time trial well. So I ended up in the consi, and 4 cars. I was the last car. 4 of us were nose to tail. I was like, these guys are gonna wreck. With the sportsman class. I'm like, they're gonna wreck. So I'm just riding behind him. My dad said, give it a little more. And then I kind of bobbled a little bit, and surprisingly, it went green to checkered. But I was happy. I put the car back in the trailer in one piece. That's all I wanted to do the whole weekend. We didn't make the feature, but that was the year that whole half the field wrecked in turn 1.
So sometimes everything happens for a reason. By you not making the feature, maybe it was a good thing the car didn't get wrecked in the big wreck.
Yeah.
A couple local things we want to patch up real quick. Finish up with Big George, who's been around Ball Stadium forever. Security guard, Big George. He's recovering from surgery. It looks like he's got colon cancer. He's out of surgery now, doing well. So we wish him well. Eric Graham, who's also a big official over at Wall Stadium, he's recovering from surgery. You know what happened to him, Josh?
His appendix gave out on him.
Oof,
that's not good.
Yeah. So he had that removed. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Josh made it onto NASCAR 24/7 Facebook page. What did you do there, Josh? What did you say to piss them off?
For once, I didn't. They shared a picture. I forget who the original photographer was, but it was back from probably at least 5 years ago, when I ran the Frostbite Indoor up at what was then Mountain Speedway. And I was in the picture. You can see my car sideways towards the back of the pack.
I did see you post that. Yeah, I was wondering why you were posting that. That was on 24/7 NASCAR?
Yeah. It was on their page, whatever. So some people were commenting, oh, it's this track. No, it's that track. I was like, no, this is what it was. And, so I correct. But I was trying to do it, not without being an a-hole. I just was, but it was kind of neat to see, because it got a lot of really positive comments, like, oh, that'd be so much fun to watch. Yeah, we need to do this. NASCAR should do this. All that stuff. Like,
what's weird? And surprisingly, Evergreen's not having that race this year. I seen on their Facebook a bunch of people asked if they were having a winter one, and they're not doing it. It sucks because I got 2 cars sitting there ready to go. I would have went up to it.
I had so much fun doing those, and then but it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. So hopefully they'll get one in next year. Or hey, honestly, Scott, winter ain't over yet. I mean, we got February. They could get some snow and say, you know what, this would be a good weekend for it, and get some cars out there.
All right, Brian Osborn, we're getting ready to wrap up the show. We really appreciate you coming on. I'm looking forward to racing with you. I mean, I always enjoyed racing with your father, and I'm looking forward to racing with you. Anything else you want to talk about, Josh?
Oh, I was. You mentioned you did the clip, the rear clip on Nancy's car.
Her rear clip was bent pretty good, and we just were allowed to replace it from the not from the spring buckets back, but from the rear clip back, where we can replace it with 2x3 now. So I just cut all the stock clip off hers and replaced it with 2x3. It came out really nice.
Yeah, well, you were talking off air before the show about getting new lens for your welding helmet.
When I was welding her car, I might as well just close my eyes and weld. I mean, the welds came out. It really came out good, but man, I couldn't see through my helmet, so I had to stop and pick up more steel over a Fazio. So I'm like, I'm going to treat myself and buy new lenses for my welding helmet. I changed the lenses in that welded helmet. It's like a whole new world, man. I can see perfect now. I kind of want to re-weld the whole clip because I could see now. So now I'm looking for stuff to weld.
Just sit around and, ooh, that's not attached.
Brian, you went to that UTI school. What exactly did you go for?
I went for automotive and Ford Fact. So obviously I went to the basic automotive program, and then I went through a Ford accelerated credit type thing. So I got 11 Ford certifications when I graduated.
Which is good because Fords are always breaking down. They need mechanics to work on them.
I like Fords, but
I mean, you'll probably never be laid off, No,
that's what I said. They had Toyota at my school too, and I'm like, Toyotas last forever. That will never work. Fords, they always break and they always have problems, so that would be good to go. But I've always worked on Fords. My family's always had Fords. So,
did they have job placement for you when you left the school like that?
They helped me they sent my resume out to places, and I got a couple calls back. So I gotta step my foot forward and stop being lazy and call a couple dealers. Like Larson Ford over in Lakewood on 88 called me and see what they're offering.
Now, what about welding and stuff? Are you capable of welding, torches, sheet metal work?
At my work, I've used the torch a little bit. I don't really do the welding on the race cars too much. I haven't really practiced it or tried the weld. So that's more my dad or Brian Sisko has a welder at my garage. He's pretty good at welding.
Yeah, Brian Sisko's a great metal fabricator. He's one of the few people left in this area that can take straight steel tubing off of a tubing rack and build a race car. I mean, he really has great craftsmanship when it comes to building race cars.
I think him and Rob Hurley is another one.
Oh, Hurley, yeah, he does great
Hurley's
work.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like his dad built that Sportsman that he drove. He built that from scratch, and
he's still winning with it. That car's 20 years old?
Yeah, and that car's fast.
Yeah. Hey, Brian Sisko built my very first race car. He put the cage in it and everything for me. And I've been building them ever since, But Brian and his father, John Sisko, they helped me build my very first race car, and they did a great job.
Yeah.
All right, that's about it, guys. I guess we'll start wrapping it up here, Brian. We really appreciate you coming on, and you're more than welcome to come on whenever you want. Looking forward to racing with you again, and I guess we'll see you on opening night at Wall Stadium.
See you on opening night.
All right. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
All right, and with that, I just figure we'll head on to what we learned today. Tim, you've been awfully quiet, so I'm going to start with you.
What did I learn today? I learned that Brian Osborn likes to eat like me, so that's a good thing.
Fair enough. Scott?
I learned that Tim has an old picture of Doug Hoffman. Where'd you get that from? Is that from that auction?
That's from his estate sale.
Yeah, the estate sale, right?
This is like
tell.
Oh, don't fall over.
It's a real painting.
Yeah, that thing's awesome.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
It looked like just a picture when it was in the background there.
Just so everybody knows, when Doug Hoffman passed away, his family had an estate sale. My brother actually went out there and bought some trophies and paintings like that from Doug Hoffman's personal collection. My brother's always been a big Doug Hoffman fan.
This is a Doug Hoffman 84 Penn National Championship Speedway. That's what it says.
Huh.
Cool.
Very nice. Scott's
I learned that, unfortunately, that Ryan Flores is going to miss a race and won't be able to run for that championship. I don't know. I think leading points he'll be able to sneak up there somehow. You know what I'm saying?
If it's just one night or come on, head out. Or, I don't know. We'll have to see how that goes. I learned that Flores can't keep the transmission in the car because he's running hard to pass Scott and get after Booth. I also learned that Scott is soon to be the oldest driver in the factory stocks.
Yeah, pretty soon.
And I also learned that Scott got Nancy's rear hot. Hi, Nancy. So that about wraps it up for me. And I guess this week.
All right.
Hopefully Eric Brennan will be back this week. He said he'd be here tonight, and well.
You had dinner with Sam Ballard. Where's he at with us nowadays? He doesn't even respond to us on Facebook anymore.
He was in Jersey for the holiday, and then he jetted back because he couldn't stand them. And
did you meet him for dinner?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he drove down to me because I'm lazy and work crappy hours. So yeah, then I think he's towards the shore down in North Carolina right now. So he's in that state, but he's not near his setup. So, slide jobs, it's hard to compete. So yeah, that's where we're at right now. So we'll do it again next week. Sound good?
All right, guys. See you next week.
I just want to thank those two for coming on. Ryan always wants to come on, and Glenn Osborne actually approached me to come on. So I figured, with all that hubbub on social media, give Brian an opportunity to talk about it. So
yeah, that's great. And if anybody else wants to come on, contact my brother on Facebook. He sets all that up. So Tim Riggleman on Facebook. Send him a private message, and he'll get you right on.
I'd love to get Glenn on. Glenn's got a bunch of stories, and I'd love to get Gil Hearn on here. Gil Hearn's got the best stories over.
You might have to go to his house and teach him how to call in and everything like that.
Or
I'd go pick him up and bring him right to Josh's.
That works.
Yeah,
too.
I mean, we're willing to talk to anybody, even the old time racers want to come in here talk about the old days. That's great too. Anybody new getting into racing wants to come back on. I mean, where's cousin Bruce at tonight, Josh? You could have told us all about go-kart racing.
Yeah, no.
They did announce that the Sunday series is going to run again next year, so that's good.
Awesome.
Why was there a question that they might not?
Well, I guess there's always a question they may or may not.
Yeah.
But the schedule's not out yet, but they did put a release out that they're going to race, so
cool.
All right.
That's good.
All right,
All right,
well,
guys.
with
That's
that, we'll see you guys next week, and hang tight and go to Wall.
Go to Atlantic City.
Go to Atlantic City. Go to Wall.
Go to Atlantic City. All right. See you guys later.